Welcome back to Destined with Destined, and this new character is kind of dumb. If you were looking for a tank with damage reduction, shields, extra block, HP based damage that actually does do some damage, CC, I mean, she has it all, and she's ridiculous. And she's coming next week, so that's pretty cool. Anyways, this is Malvira, the brand new hero coming, and she's honestly insane, and she might, at least based off the kit, be the best tank in the game. Of course, you know, kits are not everything. We do have to check out in practice, which is why we're going to be testing her. So Malvira, let's get into the kit really quick and then to the testing. First of all, her factions are Northerner and Chaotic, and she is a tank, which is really cool. These are two solid factions. Northerner is the best tank faction in the game. Cultist works pretty well with her kit. It's a great combination. Stat-wise, she's on the lower end, which you're going to see is intentional because she'd be too strong if she had better stats. She has about 24,000 HP, which is about 3,000 less than Brokir, I'm pretty sure. For example, we have 3,700 defense, which is a little low. 4,000 for Brokir, which is the baseline for good tanks. Multi-target attack, durability, and high block as her tags, and she has 2-tile range, which is pretty cool. Attack interval is 2.4, I'm pretty sure. It always shows kind of weird, but 2.4 seconds, and her rage regen is pretty average. Now, going on to the skills, we have a lot going on. So let me just try to explain it as we go. First of all, she does magic damage, and her talent is damage scales off of HP. As you can see on the screen right here, this is her guild boss damage if you want a little bit of a baseline to show. It's not a ton compared to an actual DPS, but for a tank that doesn't scale off of attack, this is the highest damage we have ever gotten, which is insane. So that's really, really exciting. This is one of the most exciting units that I've seen in recent times. She reduces damage taken by 10%, which is permanent and always, which is great. And she also has a mechanic where she gains a stack of resentment for every 2 instances of damage taken. Resentment is crazy. Each stack of resentment, stacking up to 5 times, reduces damage by 3%. It goes up to 25% damage reduction. That's insane. That is a lot of damage reduction, which is crazy. Now, when the state is removed, each stack restores 10% HP. So not only does she, have 25% damage resistance, permanent 10% going up to 25%, every time she gets rid of these stacks, sure, it lowers her damage reduction, but it makes her heal herself, which is insane. Next, she has a 100% chance to gain a stack of resentment when an allied summon dies. She'll work well with Cyrus, she'll work well with Wukong, stuff like that. You're probably not going to find that many uses for her there, where she's going to get really good benefit from this, but it is a good mechanic, getting more resentment stacks. Now, when she is deployed, she immediately gains 3 stacks of resentment, so she starts off with 19% damage reduction just off the bat, and that goes up as she's taking damage. 2 instances of damage taken is so easy to get that she's going to be getting this a lot. Now, moving on to her basic attack, it is 120% damage up to 5 enemy targets, which is, it's something. Her first passive is kind of crazy. When she takes direct damage, has a 20% chance to gain a shield equal to 10% max HP for 5 seconds. When resentment, which is her damage reduction stacks, reaches full stacks, the next basic attack consumes 1 stack and deals 240% AoE damage instead. So the more damage she's taken, the more stacks, the more she's using it when she reaches full stacks, which then in turn heals her 10%. She also gains shields, and it's a lot, right? So she's more often going to have 22% damage reduction instead of 25%. Either way, it's pretty good. Now, her second passive, before we get to the ultimate, is Oath of the Damned. The way this works is when taking fatal damage, consumes 3 stacks of resentment, which she's almost always going to have. and then she enters Unyielding. This lasts for 6 seconds, which is on the lower end of Unyielding time, but she can re-trigger it every 60 seconds. The reason why in GVG Lily is so good, just as an example, is because every 55 seconds, Lily will save a tank. You want to know what Malvira does? Every 60 seconds, she saves herself. Combo with the Lily, and then, you know, when Malvira is supposed to die, she saves herself. Then when she's supposed to die again, Lily saves her, and then already Malvira will be like halfway through her next one. So that she just gets it back. So insane. And there's so much potential for GVG especially. And we haven't even talked about the ultimate. The ultimate lasts for about 13 seconds, and it's pretty cheap at 600 cost. This is a little weird. This is kind of where the cultist faction comes into play. First of all, the range is insane. It's Piercer with a Piercer Lord range. So 1 tile longer than most, you know, marksman ranges. And the way it works is she pulls up to 6 furthest enemy targets that are in her range towards the hero. Then it consumes all the hero stacks of resentment, which, by the way, heals her up. And then for each stack of resentment consumed, increases the final damage, which is the big hit you can see in this image. She pulls them in and she goes bam. It just increases that damage. And the damage is not anything insane, but it's like close to 1 million damage. It can go up to like 600k in a tank build, which is insane. And the final nail in the coffin is within 10 seconds after casting the skill, it increases her block by 3. Let me just put that into perspective. She has permanent damage reduction, extra damage reduction, and then she does HP damage, which is decent damage. Like I said, she's some of the better tank faction in the game. She has shields. She has extra damage. Then she has Unyielding that refreshes. She has freaking a pull and actual damage, and then extra block. And I think I missed something in here too. Oh yeah, she heals herself when she uses her stacks. It's insane. She has too much going for her, but I love it. Moving on to the next thing, her Awakening. First of all, her A1 is when her ultimate is cast, applies Spirit Shield, which is her passive that gives a shield, and it casts it to other allies within 2 tiles, which is Dolores range, for 5 seconds. Going to keep everyone alive a lot better. It's pretty good. Now, her A2 is -3 cost. She is only 19 cost, so it brings her down to 16, which is good for most things, but for most like endgame applications, it's not going to really be that important. And you're not really going to have her A2 if you're not endgame. A3 is during Call of the Reaper, aka her ultimate. She only takes 80% of incoming damage, but after the ultimate ends, she loses HP equal to evenly shared remaining damage. So basically, she takes 80% damage, but that 20% damage she would have taken is dispersed after her ultimate ends. It's more damage reduction, and even if she's taking it after, it's just like, it doesn't matter because the main damage has already been dealt. So it's really good. The A4 is 1,200 base HP, which is insane because her entire kit revolves around HP, and HP is by far better than defense for tanks in this game. So it's really good. And then her A5 is kind of dumb. If you can manage to kill people, it's 20% more max HP. Each enemy killed increases the hero's max HP by 2%, stacking him to 10 times. Total of 20%. It's insane. She's so dumb on the kit. But of course, we have to see if the kit does translate to actual gameplay. That is the most important thing to check. Now, I cannot test her in GVG because the way that it worked on test server just does not work properly. So unfortunately, I cannot do that. But we can have a ton of speculation. And there's still a lot of tank and damage tests that I can run. But before we get to that, we have to talk about the build. The build, if it would load, test server doesn't like to load properly. This is the build that I will be using. It's a little hard to build her if you want to build her with damage and tankiness. But at the end of the day, you could build her one way or the other, and she would be fine. I do recommend building her mostly tanky. The best set by far is Unshaken Will. You should have Unshaken Will on all of your tanks. It is the best set in the game. HP plus 20% when deployed, and when she's attacked, recovers 5% of max HP, triggers up to 1 time every 5 seconds. It's really good. I tried to focus on crit rate on most of these pieces, a little bit of attack speed when I can, HP, defense, all of that stuff. You want to build her like a DPS, but also a tank. It's kind of confusing, but we have a little bit of extra attack speed, almost full crit rate, crit damage is pretty high, and then the HP. Also, for DPS applications, I will be using the new Cadaver Dagger, which is coming pretty soon. But for stuff like GVG, stuff like, you know, actual tanking applications, you're going to want to use Bastion Ring just for the actual block. It's a lot better. But this, to my knowledge, is the only increase HP artifact in the game for tank. So that's why I'm using it. So with that out of the way, let's get into the testing. For the first test, I'm going to be doing single target, just consistent damage. AMR 18 is really good for this because the boss gets stronger over time. So I'm going to be comparing these 3 tanks, Cyrus, Brokir, and Malvira, which is the new challenger for the throne of best tank or whatever. We're going to be using Vortex as the healer just for, you know, consistent healing. And I'm just going to put the tank down. I'm going to put the healer down and hope and pray. Wait, what are we doing with just one? Let's show them all. So for AMR, I basically just put them all together and I pressed auto fight and I let them do their thing. Obviously, if you time things better, they'll do better. And I think Malvira actually does better tanking if you don't click her ult. Or you time her ult better. But it's just overcomplicated. And I figured this would be the easiest way to do it. So some things that really stood out to me. Brokir and Cyrus, just their ultimates are so much better for tanking that it's almost as if Malvira is at a disadvantage, just due to how her kit works. And I was also pleasantly surprised by how good Cyrus was. Some things I should say is Cyrus did end up killing a couple of the minions, making him live longer. And Malvira also did some pretty good damage, doing about 8 mil. But at the end of the day, Cyrus is just so strong, being the best tank in the game, though he doesn't have unyielding, so he only has 1 life, so he won. Now, an area of the game that I think she might be really good in is Gear Dungeon 1, because she does some damage. While her damage is not exceptional, it still is a big help, especially if you're using someone like an Iona for the bottom, and you don't have the damage output you would with a legendary. She might help you a lot with that. And she also has extra block, which reduces the strain on your second tank. Generally will be an Isolde with the strats used in the stage. And I think she has really good potential for this stage. Now I'm not gonna do the whole thing. This is just gonna be like a short part of it to just showcase it. But I think she'll be pretty good. So first off, we put Vierda, which could be Iona, could be Comet, whatever. Then Eloin, and then we'll do Malvira, who will be in the front, because I mean, we want to reduce the strain on the tank in the back. Next, we're gonna do Isolde. I guess we'll do Artemis next. Malvira, I know it doesn't look like much, but when you see her do that big slam, it's like 70k. Like, that's a lot, especially for an AoE unit that's built like a tank, right? It's pretty cool. But as these guys come forward, we're able to put Yao-Chan on, and then we can trigger Malvira. Also, Artemis. I should have done Artemis first, just so the anti-heal was out, but it's fine. We're doing fine. And then I can put, you know, all the other units that we might need. I can pretty much just one-tap these guys. I did it a little late, but we should be able to kill this guy anyways, so it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. But you can see that we're churning through these waves pretty fast. And it'll continue to be pretty fast on the second wave, where we're going to wait for Artemis to come up, because the rage is not there. He's not really built at all. I'm going to trigger him. I'm going to trigger her. She's going to do 400k, 300, 400k on that hit. And then we're able to trigger Vierna. And that's that, right? You can keep this going over and over again. If your DPS is weaker, you're still going to have a much easier time by using her instead of something like a broken. Now we go over here, and she's doing about 25% Vierna's doing. But keep in mind, Vierna is built in a good soulbound set with a max tier of Twilight. She is also under a Lord. I mean, they're both under a Lord, but you got to keep that in mind. And Vierna is one of the better AoE DPS in the game, right? She's doing pretty decent, especially because her main role is tanking. So it's pretty impressive. And you can keep that going. You can have a worse DPS, and she will help you pick up the slack. I think this is one of the best areas to use her in. Now, to kind of close things off, I have to, first of all, theorize on some areas where I can't actually test her. By the way, that's the BP I was able to get. Barely 90k at A5. I do not recommend using her for BP. But there are a couple of areas I think that are going to be pretty much full meta, if not close. One of those being a GVG. Now, you might be thinking I could test her here, right? Just have someone make a garrison and I could hit it, right? But I'm going to show you what happens. You click it and it says error. There's no way to garrison, so I cannot test her in GVG. I think she has a lot of GVG potential. She has pretty much everything that she needs. She has unyielding, she has shield, she has some CC, extra block, all of this stuff. She should be really good there. I don't know if she will be the most meta for every team, but I think she has a lot of potential. And something interesting about her is because she's the first ever actual damage dealing tank with 2-tile range, I think you could put her behind another tank, because despite her being a really good tank, I think there are still better options like Torador for Nightmare teams, obviously. Brokir and Regulus still are really good. And because of, her getting damaged during her unyielding, I think she's going to really struggle. Then again, she can refresh her unyielding and then pair with Lily. There's potential there. But I think you might be able to put her behind another tank and she'll do some damage. She'll do some extra block, prevent swarming. I think she has a lot of potential there, as well as just being the front tank, right? Which is really unique to her that she has this 2-tile range. I think that might be really cool. So I'm very excited to see how far people push her in GVG. I think she has a lot of potential. The other area where she has so much potential, but I cannot test her, is Tank Codex. She will be one of the most meta units in it. 3 extra block is insane. That means you can have 7 block with Bastion Ring. And she also has a lot of self-sustainability, especially for Tank Codex. I think she's going to be used on most high teams. Gone is the only other unit that can get up to 7 block. Cyrus with his skeletons can get about 6. And that's just kind of it, right? Like, I think Rocks can get 5 or 6. I don't remember. But she's going to be really good there. So what do I think about her as a whole? I think she is definitely in the conversation for being a top 3 defender. I do not think it is an easy lock. We got Brokir, we got Cyrus, we got Regulus, we got Torador, we got Gone. These are all really, really good tanks. And it's really hard to break into being a good tank compared to these guys. I think Malvira is a little bit too much of a random grab bag of mechanics, to the point where some of it falls a little flat compared to some of these other units. I think the main thing holding her back from being a definitive best defender in the game, which she would be if she didn't have this issue, is the fact that she does damage. Damage is good, obviously. The more damage, the better. But it's just, like I said before in the video, the ult really is a little bit lackluster when you really need to have like a instant get out of jail free card, like Brokir, for example. I think it can hold her back a little bit in some areas of the game. But that is mostly just talking about GVG. Everything else, she will be more than tanky to take it on. And in that case, she will be better than most other tanks because she brings that damage utility. It's both what brings her back in really high-end content where you need to just be as tanky as possible, aka Cyrus or Brokir, right? It kind of holds her back there, but everywhere else, the damage is going to give her a little bit more texture and a little bit more flavor than these other tanks, while also being impossible to kill as long as you pair her with a acceptable healer and some decent stats. I think she's great. She's a great addition to the game. I will 100% be pulling for her, and she has a lot of potential. I'm excited to see where she ends up going. Is she a top 3? Is she a top 5 defender? I don't know, but I think she brings a lot to the table that can be desired, and if you find a use for her, she will really shine. I'm excited to use her in GVG, which I can't test because freaking test server, but it's okay. So let me know your guys' thoughts based on the information I presented. Once again, sorry I can never test GVG on this stuff, but like I literally like I try and it just does not let me. It's very disappointing. But anyways, that is Malvira, one of my most anticipated units. I'm very excited, and she seems like a lot of fun. And that's it. Thanks for watching or something. Bye bye. This is Audio.